Off the Radar.
All right, back here on SicEm365 Radio, Craig Smoak, David Smoak, Paul Catalina. Little off the radar. Start saying 455 for this segment. But have a couple of notes that we'll get to in this edition of Off the Radar. Just some stories that are not of, the utmost importance, that aren't on the front page of what we talk about on a daily basis. This past weekend, UFC had their 261 pay-per-view. Kamaru Usman successful in a major way in his fight with Jorge Masvidal. You guys might remember that they had the dust-up at the Super Bowl the last time we were there. That was like 2 years ago at this point. Yeah. But they had a dust-up, and Masvidal got knocked the blank out by Usman. And Masvidal has said, hey, much respect. He hopes to fight for the title again in the future, although I think it's going to be quite a while because his 2 title fights have not gone well for him in any way, shape, or form. I do like the guy. He was very nice to me a couple years back in his hometown of Miami, but that was not a bright spot for him. But perhaps the most viral moment was not Usman's knockout, even as impressive as it was. It was Chris Weidman, the veteran UFC fighter, breaking his leg mid-fight against Uriah Hall. Not even mid-fight. It was like as the fight was beginning, basically threw a kick. His leg snapped when Uriah Hall checked the kick, which does happen sometimes. He planted his foot folded. He was on the canvas. Well, he underwent surgery on Sunday morning, then took to Instagram to thank everyone for their well wishes, and that included Anderson Silva, who you might remember had a similar injury in a fight with, I believe it was with Weidman. So he says he's going to try to find the blessing in disguise. He's not giving up fighting. I thought that he probably would based on what we saw. And, we'll see how that goes. He's 37 years old coming this summer.
Wow.
But if you missed it, be glad that you missed it. They put a titanium rod through the tibia. They go through the knee, take the rod, and drill it through the tibia to make it straight and hard. His fibula was also broken. But when they put the tibia back together and his leg was straight, the fibula kind of matched up to where it was broken, so they feel like it can heal on its own, is what Chris Weidman said. But that was a pretty nasty injury on Saturday night.
I was sitting there, I guess, and it was on my timeline. It looked as if his leg went fluid, like Willis McGahee in the bowl game, or not even Alex Smith or even Dak Prescott, but you could see the immediate that it was completely broken. I mean, it was gross. And I'm glad that I didn't see it live, but I happened to see just for a second slow motion, which is even worse. It was gross, and I can't imagine. Good for him to have the surgery and moving on.
Yeah, Paul, did you see the GIF of this leg break?
Yeah, I did.
Good stuff, huh?
Yeah. And I checked off the vomit in my mouth is acid reflux, but
yeah, it was pretty bad.
It could have been more.
Yeah,
it was pretty bad, but it was a good card.
Yeah.
It
was a hell of a night. I mean, this Rose girl, who's a rock star or whatever, and among others. But yeah, that was one that kind of put a sour taste on the rest of the night.
Yeah, and I think the UFC's hit a really nice stride as far as their star power goes, and as far as just the big fights they're putting together. It's still a little bit too frequent for me to keep up all the way. Too many divisions, too many belts, too many shows to really keep up with. But there's at the top, at their sweet spot, they're in a really good stride right now. And yes, Rose Namajunas is a very fun female fighter to watch, a strawweight, and had a big knockout to get a major win for her this past weekend. So definitely check her out as well. This has nothing to do with Kim Mulkey, I promise you. It just has to do with the school that she went to, because we haven't talked much about this, and God knows that Baton Rouge Radio probably spent a good amount of time on Baylor football back in the day. But if you haven't noticed, and ESPN has covered it, not to the extent they covered Baylor. Nobody has covered LSU to the extent that they covered Baylor about 5 years ago. But a new lawsuit was filed against LSU this week, accusing the university of conspiring to cover up multiple reports of sexual misconduct and dating violence, discriminating against female students, and depriving them of their rights. There's 7 women that have filed a lawsuit against the university, its leadership, the athletic fundraising arm, and multiple top administrators. The plaintiffs include 3 former LSU tennis players, 2 former football recruiting office student workers, a former student, and a current student who alleged that the school created a culture of silence. Does that sound familiar at all? Ring kind of like what we were hearing a few years ago? That discouraged victims from reporting abuse and harassment, that it prioritized the football team above the safety and welfare of the students, and they're seeking more than $5 million. There's a lot of allegations. And what's really interesting is former AD Joe Oliva. I don't know if you guys saw this, but he was a part of this as well. And the former the Oregon State president, the former Oregon State president that had come over from LSU, he had to step down after pressure here in the last few days from the community upon the kind of release of the various allegations. So Oregon State's now, in a roundabout way, been affected by this, and they had to call for the resignation of F. King Alexander. So they're not going through a presidential search because of his ties to LSU. Yeah. Now there's also the Darius Geis factor in this as well. He's now barred from the LSU campus, and yet we didn't know anything until, well, right now, basically. So there's all these different aftershocks that are starting to occur. Former tennis player is one of those who alleges that Darius Geis raped her. One of the former football student recruiting workers said that he took a nude photo of her and shared it without her consent. So he's very much involved in the story, Darius Geis, and just sounds like a complete scumbag. But this is wide-ranging, and we will see what occurs. But I said, I think maybe it was off the air, if I'm LSU, I'm really interested in whatever the NCAA does to Baylor, because this is about as close to it as we've seen of any story. Like as far as the language, the accusations, the involvement and things like that, this is a very similar story in some ways, although Ed Orgeron's not being treated like Art Briles in this case for some reason. I don't know. Instead, we're just watching him hug Kim Mulkey when she arrives on campus.
I mean, and look, not yet. I mean, again, it's like you got everything you have to say not yet. Because
but it also is a school, Paul, in LSU that may not give a damn what social media and other people say either. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, they never have. I mean, they never. I mean, but you know, there's new administration up and down that university that has to now clean this out and do whatever it is so that these people find justice. But it almost reads word for word exactly like you said, Craig, and it's almost, outside of the involvement of certain people, like whatever it is, whether it's Michigan State or what happened at Ohio State or whatever, these all read the same things as somebody went somewhere with a complaint and it was just put in a stack and nothing was ever done about it. And then eventually you're just getting to the point of like, why was nothing done about my complaint?
And you know who looks pretty much the worst out of this? I mean, Darius Geis looks the worst out of this, but Les Miles looks really bad in all of this as well. And he is mentioned throughout, and you may not have known this, maybe you saw it over the last few months, but apparently after being investigated in 2013, and if you're asking, well, when did he leave again? He left in 2016, 3 years after the investigation. He had been banned from being around female students at LSU. The head football coach had been banned from being around the female students. So this is part of why Mulkey went to LSU. I mean, we were talking about like to help the program, or Mac was referring to that, and that's exactly what he was referring to. Was this right here? Was this whole
this is why Jeff Long at Kansas doesn't have a job anymore, because if you were because Jeff Long clearly didn't ask LSU, because they could have said, some of this stuff would have been maybe under legal lock and key, but the fact that he was banned from being around female students, if I were LSU telling them about Les Miles, I've been like, look, you may want to hire him, but you can't put him around the co-eds.
And I need to be clear, being alone with female students. I just want to make sure he couldn't not be around anybody. But
that's a huge deal that he can't be alone, in a room with a female student and that they not have to worry about it.
Yeah, I think we've seen the last of Les Miles, guys. I think we have. The Kansas thing was obviously not very good, but this is even worse. This is really, really bad look for him and for LSU. And, I've seen ESPN put it on the front page and things like that, but I think you're right. They just don't care. I know there are a lot of LSU fans that do, because I've read their tweets, and there are a lot that are fighting the fight. But, there's a lot that don't, and, as long as Darius Geis was scoring touchdowns, that's all that matters. So there's just a lot of similarities. Very interesting to see how that story is going to play out. And I'll just leave the final thing here. Ever since we saw a Triple Crown winner, do y'all care at all about the Triple Crown?
I always do. I
still do?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, maybe. Talking about in horse racing?
Yeah.
Well, I was talking about baseball, too. But no, it's not the same. It's not that, year after year. I'll still, if someone wins it, whoever the horse would win it.
I'm thrilled I got to see it.
But it's not this like almost like waiting for the car wreck we saw year after year after year when somebody won, and a lot of horses did win the first couple of legs of the Triple Crown.
I'll be forever thankful to Big Brown and for Miguel Cabrera for both giving me Triple Crowns in two different sports in my lifetime, so I could say I saw it.
Yeah, I always wanted to see a Triple Crown winner, so Big Brown was pretty awesome. But you may not know it's coming up. The Kentucky Derby is coming up. Any guesses on who the favorite is? Could y'all even try to name a horse in the race?
No, Fred.
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah.
Known agenda. 6-1 favorites. 6-1 favorite to win the Kentucky Derby and the number one post. Hot Rod Charlie is 8-1. Highly motivated, 10-1. And there's obviously a lot of fun names and whatnot as well. But shortly before, I guess it would be 6 o'clock, just before 6 o'clock this Saturday on NBC, it'll be the running of the Kentucky Derby. So the 147th edition coming your way this weekend. I'm just glad we saw a Triple Crown winner in my lifetime.
I am torn because I always pick horses not based on the fact that they could run really fast and win it. I pick based on the names completely. I am torn between Midnight Bourbon at 20-1 and Soup and Sandwich at 30-1.
Soup and Sandwich, yes.
Who doesn't love Soup and Sandwich?
It's the go-to, man.
Yes.
When you had a fever or the flu, back before COVID was known, you have a fever and flu now or whatever it might be. In fact, I saw where flu was down like 90% last year. I wonder why.
I don't know. But Hidden Stash.
If you had the flu, we don't give a damn, you know?
Yeah, I guess I don't really care. I mean, that whole conversation is just not even worth having. I mean, it's really not. Hidden Stash is a funny name as well. I wonder if the owners partake a little in the wacky weed.
I think you had everyone.
Stephen from Virginia's horse.
Hidden Stash.
Stevens is finally legal.
But coming up on Saturday, so there's just a couple of stories that are a bit off the radar that we normally wouldn't have time for.
All right, when we come back, David Hellman on the upcoming NFL draft with the Cowboys. Also, John McClain, NFL Hall of Fame writer. Much more to come. SicEm365 Radio.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, got their savings event going on right now over at Richard Carr, and they have got great deals all over the lot.